Hey, also, this is the continuation of the video with David Caddick about his tool, Get Security Done. So let's get to it.
Um,
Actually, this is
yeah,
in GitHub, like what you said. People can fork and they can
absolutely.
propose updates.
Yes,
Right?
they can. Absolutely.
And,
And I would strongly encourage that as well.
and I think what's great about the way you document it as well is it follows your thinking when you were supporting or when you're going through customer questions that led you to understand how to deploy and what steps are important at what stage. Although
Absolutely.
although neither you or I were actually deploying these solutions, we're supporting customers who are going through
Mm,
consultants and through partners who are doing that, right? So we're
yeah,
seeing some of these steps
yeah.
that should be taken into consideration.
Yeah, and look, thanks for that validation because to a certain extent, I have already been there, done that in the field, and now I'm bringing those learnings to it. But the
There you go.
interesting thing is this matches the way we all look and see. And look, I'd like to think that I'm sort of producing it in a flow that's easy to understand, makes sense, and adds value. And that's what I'm seeking to do here.
Yeah.
So fairly sort of simple in that respect. The one thing I would also call out is this is the old version of the URL. So if you type in portal.atp, you add that ATP dot piece in there, you should come up with a console that looks a bit like this. Now, in this particular case, I don't have a good vision of it, but it's basically saying I don't have access to that page. The reason I call this out is I actually had a customer probably about 1.5 years, 2 years ago said, yeah, no worries, mate, we've done it. And I said, oh, really? Can you just go to this link? And they went to this link and it wasn't set up. So they thought they had it done, but it wasn't. And not only that, go to the sensor links and check your domain controllers because over time, 12, 18 months, people have, from the infrastructure team, have possibly decommissioned domain controllers, brought in new ones that may not have the sensors installed on it. So unless the sensors baked into the domain controller build process, you will see gaps. Okay. So again, it's worthwhile just going through and double checking these things. Okay.
And specifically about MDI, the ideal scenario will have agents and sensors deployed on as many servers as you, all of them,
ideally, all domain controllers.
Yeah, given
Don't
they
have to
have
be on
the
servers,
bandwidth.
but domain controllers, yes. In fact, look, there is more specifically, there is actually like a mirroring function as well if you really wanted to. So you don't actually have to have MDI visible to anyone who's using the domain controller. You can actually do port mirroring if you really wanted to. Having said that, that complicates things, makes it harder to install, also makes it harder to troubleshoot and various other bits. And it's really only the most upper echelon of security maturity that you'd start to think about how that works. Okay, keep it simple, keep it real, get it installed, just get it done.
Get it done. Yeah. Amazing. And I can see you have a lot of other similar pages for everything else in our stack.
Correct.
Which
Absolutely.
will take anyone
Yep.
hours to go through. If you had any takeaway for us to look at next, what would you say we should be looking at? Perhaps something.
Simplest and easiest one, conditional access. Okay, good question. Okay, but this is also why I put this as number 2. Okay, think about the ways of you working, think about how you want to do it. Be aware that, God bless Microsoft and their documentation, but there is a propensity to use negatives and double negatives in your documentation, which gets us all a little bit not quite right on the logic of actually what's happening. So with the conditional access policies, do be aware when I say enable telemetry, I'm talking about do a quick cross check and make sure you use this tool. It's built on Power BI. Okay, there's a couple of tools and I'll take you through these ones.
Yep.
But the great thing is this AD assessment tool will actually pull through your policies and it will actually check for proper exclusion, proper inclusion, break glass hygiene. It'll check all of these best practices for you and make sure it's all done. Okay. Big key thing to watch out for is some people have actually taken away from the documentation that in conditional access, there is a block by default. I have to point out there is not. Okay, there is not a block by default. So effectively, unless you do a block and you put blocks in place as you go through, you're effectively doing conditional access policies, and it's like having a firewall at the bottom that says allow any, which is not a good idea. Okay,
Yeah, we have to block effective create block policies.
Exactly. All right. So that's one tool. Okay. The alternative way is using a very handy tool that Merrill has built. Merrill's one of our identity folks, who's an absolute amazing guy down in Melbourne, who's managed to pull this through. So he has a CA documenter. Okay. Now this allows you to do two different ways. You can either run the tool and actually allow it to pick up your permissions and actually go and grab the JSON for you and then create slide decks for you as well.
So it creates this image that you're seeing contextualized to your environment. It's impressive.
Absolutely amazing. And look, we're all visual people, right? Like it or not, at some point you have to take a complex configuration and explain it to people who are not technically literate in what you do. So if you can visualize what you're actually trying to achieve, it makes it much easier to explain to management and or to the stakeholders so they understand the consequences of what they're actually agreeing to. Okay, I can't stress that enough. The visual tool on both of these tools is absolutely amazing. So this is another great one. So a secondary piece is you can go and actually take the JSON files and export them yourself, and then it will actually take the JSON and it will create this slide deck for you as well. So
amazing.
There's two ways to do it. Having said that, this is just for individual tenancies and how you do it. If you're part of a managed service provider or a managed security service provider, okay, the one thing I would start to look at is come down here for automation of CA as code. Because if you can do it to one, if you can automate it, it's much quicker, faster, and better, because you're now taking solid policies every time and you're not having to reinvent the wheel. So this is based off some stuff from Thomas. Thomas is an absolute gun and quite often does some really good sessions that unfortunately I haven't seen because he's based in Germany and Austria, etc., and places like that over in Europe. But the amazing thing is all of this walks you through the whole point of being able to build it in a repo and then actually being able to do it as proper conditional access as code. Okay, there's lots of details around that. There's various other tools that will help you build on that, because the automation components with both PowerShell and API exist for conditional access. They also exist for some parts of Intune, but they don't necessarily cover off the rest of these tools at the moment. Literally last week, there was a Defender for Identity PowerShell component for configuration. There is API and PowerShell for all of this tooling from a telemetry point of view and an alerting and an incident point of view. Yes, there is. But if you stop and look back at the configuration side, and you're actually looking at the configuration and the policy side, no, this does not exist. It has been something that I have been arguing for and passionately trying to push for the best part of the last 3 or 4 years. But it is what it is, okay? I just have to take my lumps. But there was a release literally, I think even as early as the start of this week. Defender for Identity actually has PowerShell. So if we look at Defender for Identity, there was actually a PowerShell release here. And you'll notice this published literally 2 days ago, introducing the new PowerShell module for Microsoft Defender for Identity. So you now finally do have configuration for PowerShell in MDI. Okay. Hopefully, this is a sign that the rest of these components will get the same love. Yes, in Sentinel, you can automate to your heart's content. People in Lab 3 have managed to get that down to less than a minute. Because it's been, anyway, bicep Terraform. It's all you can do all of that. That's not a problem. Okay, but these components, hopefully they'll get a bit more love. Defender for Cloud, yes, it can be done by Azure policy, etc. But as I say, these are in a sequence for a reason. Having said that, as you pointed out, Andre, it's available on GitHub pages. People can fork it, they can contact me, they can run through with that. There's various bits and pieces, and I think, there we go. So feedback. Okay. Please feel free to raise any issues and or discussions, etc. And if you're actually going to help me with this as well, it'll actually start popping up your details as well here as a contributor.
Amazing. That's a great piece of project that you shared with the community, Dave. I really appreciate you running us through some of it, and the work you put into it. It really shows the years of experience you have working with it and supporting customers around this technology. So really appreciate your time. And of course, really appreciate you as well sharing that with the community.
My pleasure. Look, if it just helps one person get it done quicker, faster, better, and avoid an incident of some kind, then it's been worthwhile.
Thanks so much, Dave. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Andre. Catch you later.
Catch you later.
Hey there, future Andre. To finalize the video here. Hopefully you found this video interesting. Let me know in the comments section if you found this sort of content useful or not. And what would you like to hear next? I'm trying to gather interesting tools that I see on the field to you that might be relevant to you, right? So make sure you have the tool set you need to perform the best you can as someone in the field from a cybersecurity perspective, from a consulting perspective, and naturally from a Microsoft technology perspective. Okay, if you would like to hear more or follow up the content, make sure you like and subscribe, and see you next time.